Dose with your host, Farah. I will be speaking to Quinn Conyers today about 5 speaking tips that you can use to capture and captivate your audience. We're having some technical difficulties. I'm trying to see if she can join. So just give me 1 minute and see if we can get her on so she can join us to get into this talk today. So give me one moment. I want to make sure that I'm live and that you guys can see me. If you guys can see and hear me, please let me know in the chat. And hopefully, we'll have Quinn join us in just a moment. Technical difficulties. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so I am live. So let's see if she can join us. Okay. All right, sorry about the technical difficulties. Let's see if she can jump on. If not, then perhaps what we can do is perhaps reschedule with Quinn. I hope we don't have to do that. But if not, I can, I guess, go into this topic on my own and then we can reschedule. Uh, oh, she's in the chat though, Quinn. But I don't see. Uh, how can I add you? Wow, let me see. Okay. Try to join with this link here. Sorry guys, this is so Quinn, I just sent you another link. See if you're able to join directly so that we can have you come onto the screen so we can have kind of a live conversation because right now you're just in the actual chat. So let's see. Okay, so I guess maybe it's not letting you come on. Well, I guess what we can do is just kind of begin. I'm so sorry for this, Quinn. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually have to switch probably to StreamYard because StreamYard is a lot easier. It's usually a link that you click on and that you can come on. So sorry about that. I apologize. It's been hectic, but we were trying to get her on. I am so sorry about this technical. Oh, here we go. Yes.
I was trying every device.
Listen, Quinn, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to switch back to StreamYard because Restream sometimes gives technical difficulties to guests, and it happened to me prior. So I'm so happy you're able to make it. Thank you so much.
No,
Sorry.
I was on the phone. I'm like trying every which way to get on. So we worked it out.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. So, everybody, this is Quinn. I'm so happy to have her on today. She is the OG of like emceeing and speaking. So, I'm so happy and I'm so excited to have you on. So, if you wanted to just tell a little bit about yourself and what you do to the people out there.
Sure. Well, I'm grateful to be here. My name is Quinn Conyers, and I transform average events into epic experiences as a compelling keynote speaker and a corporate event MC. And when I'm not doing that, I am turning up the volume on the voices of women in leadership positions, women who are entrepreneurs, or women who just are required to speak in their career and are not actually quite compelling communicators yet. So my job, my goal is to amplify their voice so they can be super successful in their career or in their business.
Awesome. So, tell the people just to start out, for those that are watching now, if they wanted to contact you or get in touch with you or work with you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
I would say let's start the conversation on LinkedIn. send me a message. That way, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're anything like me, you can kind of like mosey behind and see kind of like, is this somebody who I really want to kind of connect with? So I
Right.
always say start on LinkedIn, get a feel of me and feel like if that's a good fit, shoot me a message and then I can kind of send you what are next steps to see if we can exchange energy and potentially work together.
Awesome. So today's topic, everybody, and for those who don't know me, my name is Farah Laurent, recently Dr. Laurent, and I'm a nurse career coach. Been a nurse for over 20 years, and this show just really is for nurses and just anybody out there watching who wants to really level up their career and be successful professionally and personally. So today we're going to be talking about 5 ways that tips that you can use in speaking to really captivate and capture your audience. So I have a couple things written down, but what would you say your one of your number one tips for doing that would be?
I would say to really let go of the idea that you have to like overcome your fear of public speaking or overcome like people just try to like stamp it out. And I tell everybody gets butterflies, right? It's
Yeah,
just about I have learned how to get my butterflies to fly in formation versus crashing into each other, right?
I love.
So there is this huge myth, and people are like, I can help you overcome your fear of public speaking. Not really. It still is the number one fear no matter how long you've been doing it. I'm part of 2 professional speaking organizations. We all get nervous.
Mhm.
It's just part of it. You want to do a good job. You have a bunch of people looking at you. You are accepting and receiving a lot of energy from an audience. So for you not to be nervous, it would be like, are you okay? Are you all the way human? Because that's
Right.
normal. So that's one of the first tips that I give people. I think that there is really much a lie floating around that people who are good speakers don't get nervous or don't have to like kind of get themselves together, and they do. So giving yourself some grace in the aspect of nerves are normal, and
Mhm.
nerves is, definitely something that we can work through, but I don't believe that you can get rid of them.
Yeah, that's so true. Like I actually spoke at the National Nurses and Business Association, and that was in Las Vegas, and it was a national conference, obviously. And that was the biggest audience that I ever spoke to. I think it was like maybe 240 nurses or so. So I was really nervous. But then when I got up there, right, and started getting into it, it just kind of flowed. And I think it's important too because she put me on like the second day to speak. So I got to actually meet a lot of the participants who were there. And then at the table, I had an exhibitor table. I spoke to a lot of them. So I think connecting with the audience before um, really is important for me anyway. And I think it calmed me down a little bit. But obviously, yes, I think the nerves is always going to be there, like you said. So what about when you're up there? What's kind of your tips to really captivate, like when you're doing your introduction? Because I know a lot of people say, don't introduce yourself. Start with like a quote or something shocking or a story. So, kind of, what's your tip on that? Kind of your.
Yeah, so I want to go back to something that you said though. You made a really good point. You should never speak on a cold stage. So what do I mean by that? So anytime you are going to speak, you need to feel the energy of the room, right? So it's
Mhm,
never just like, okay, I'm about to speak in 10 minutes. Let me go ahead and make my way over there. Sometimes I'm usually there the day before. I got to walk the room. I got to feel the energy because
mhm,
speaking in front of 30 people, 300 people, or 3,000 people, that's a different energy.
right.
I always ask people to or recommend that they do a walkthrough.
Mhm,
I mean, a real walkthrough, not just you're on the stage, but you're on a walkthrough with lights. Most people are not comfortable and confident with a bunch of lights shining on you. So that's
mhm,
also a big thing that people don't think about. You're thinking about the audience. 9 times out of 10, depending on how big the stage is, you can't even see the audience. All you can see is black and lights. So if you are not comfortable speaking in front of lights, you will look like a deer caught in headlights, and that makes you nervous.
right.
So if you are speaking to larger crowds, I
Mhm,
would ask if I can do a walkthrough before with actual lights on me so I understand that when I step on the stage, it's not the first time. I did this before.
mhm,
Meeting with attendees, like you said, getting a lay of the land, making sure that you're like soaking in the energy of the room. It is a very different walkthrough if I'm speaking to a group of 300 versus it is 3,000 in a crowd, right? I have
Right.
to walk a little bit more because that's a lot more energy that you have to give. So that's what I would say that I just wanted to reiterate. I love the fact that you
That's
did that. And when you're on stage, there's a couple different things. So speaking is a very dynamic art form. And I tell people that a lot of people are worried about the words that are coming out of your mouth. And that's so much more to being a powerful presenter or a compelling communicator. So you mentioned it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter how you start a speech. However you start it, you want to know that. You shouldn't get up there and wing it, right? So if you want to start with a quote, that is fine. If you want to start with a story, that's perfectly fine as well. If you want to start with audience interaction, how many of you want to level up in your nursing career? Raise your hand. However you start is fine, right? You
Mhm.
should know how you're going to start before you get on that stage. And a
Right.
lot of times we're nervous because we're like, okay, let me figure out what I'm going to say. You should always know your opening line and your closing line. That should never change. You should know the very first thing that you're going to say, and you should say the last thing that you're going to say. That should be memorized. You should know that.
Mhm.
When you're on stage, it's a combination of what you say, how you say it, and your overall body language and movement. One of the things that I love about the art of public speaking is that you are not just a speaker, you are part comedian. You are part entertainer. You are part educator because you're doing so many things with the
Yeah.
time that you have on stage. So, your goal as a speaker is to make sure that you allow your audience to feel, see, touch, hear, and taste every single word that comes out of your mouth. So even when you're speaking, you should be painting a picture. So it really is about you delivering a message in a way that allows your audience to experience all five senses as you are speaking.
That is amazing. And you touched upon some great things that I wrote down. So, one of the things that I wrote down was obviously being prepared and being a subject matter expert
Mhm.
in what you're going to be speaking about. But I think one mistake that a lot of people do, and I myself sometimes do this, is your pace of how you're speaking and the tone, right? So, you need to have a lot of you know, different inflections points and you need to pause because a lot of people don't pause to make more of an impact so they can hear. But people kind of speak too quickly. And I think I have that problem sometimes. So I have to slow it down and really pause sometimes because the audience needs that pause to process kind of what you're saying. So what are your thoughts on that kind of you know the communication style and intonation and all that?
Yeah, so what you're talking about is called vocal variety,
Right.
right? And vocal variety is how you use your voice as an instrument to speak,
Mhm.
right? So vocal variety includes the rate in which you speak, the pace in which you speak, and a
Mhm.
lot of that, which is so interesting because as people advance in their careers, they do so much professional development, and I feel like speaking always gets the short end of the stick. It's like I'm not a great speaker, and they like, don't do anything about it, right? I'm like, well, have you taken a class? Have you tried to study? You know what I mean? It's like, no, I just whatever. But it's like they have taken classes and invested in themselves in other different ways. And I believe public speaking needs the same type of time and attention. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's vocal variety, it is
Mhm.
practice, it is being very comfortable, and you said subject matter expert, with knowing that when you speak and what point has a major impact when you need to be quiet.
Right.
So, for example, when I get on stage, 9 times out of 10, I will say, somewhere along those lines, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Again, I kind of reintroduce myself. My name is Quinn Conyers, and my goal is to leave a legacy with my language and change the world with my words. I have to let that marinate because people
Mhm.
don't talk like that, right? So you have to be conscious of what words or what phrases have I used that the audience was like, right? So if it happened
Right.
once, you need to anticipate audience interaction and allow them to digest the words that just came out of your mouth, and then you move on to your next point, and that comes with practice. Just like jokes, when you say a joke or you watch comedians, right?
Mhm.
I always tell people, if you ever want to get better at nonverbal communication, watch comedy with no sound, Because when you watch, they'll see how much they use their eyes. They use the mic as the prop. They
Mhm.
really, comedians are amazing with nonverbal communication. They will bring a whole story to life and you'll be laughing and they're not even saying anything. It's the way they're holding the mic. It's the ways their eyes pop out of their sockets, right? So if
Right.
you want to get better at alliteration and the language, rappers are like poets with
Right.
behind it, right?
You say that,
Yeah. So
yeah.
rappers are like poets, right? Cadence, like
Yes.
the rhythmic sound of language, poets. So if you
Right.
listen to
Like
somebody,
Eminem, like you could just pick that up.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
different
So
rappers have their different cadence.
yeah,
Yes.
different cadences. So I mean, that's part of it as well. You know, there's so, like I said, there's so many different aspects that affect your way to become a power presenter or compelling communicator. And then my favorite of all, right, is I am just a lover of language. So people consider me as a speaker, but I look at myself as an audience activator. I am a linguistic legend, right? So
Mm.
what that simply means is part of my speaking superpower, and you have to figure that out. Some people's speaking superpower is their way they tell stories. Some people's speaking superpower is how they use their hands and nonverbal communication. My speaking superpower is how I have a way with words, right? How I use alliterations, how I use certain words that sound really good together, right?
Right.
The command of the English language is what it is that I'm good at. So when you're speaking, you need to figure out what you're good at so you can lean into it. So I might not make you laugh all the time, but I will say something like, as a speaker, I don't want to be booked and busy. I want to be peaceful and paid. And I'll let that marinate, right? Because I'm what I call in my own thing a linguistic legend, right?
Right. And I love that, just like you said, the butterflies in formation, right?
Right.
Yes. So I mean, you said so many great things, and I totally agree. I love stand-up comedy. And I think that the reason, and the really popular and really good comedians read the audience,
Yeah.
right? And are able to bring the storytelling that can relate to a lot of people. So I think, that was a great way to compare that. So that's great. And even like reading the room as you're speaking. And I think this, because of my educator background, I could see, right? So you could start engaging them more a little bit if you see that maybe they're like starting to not focus or, try to engage them. So one of my points that I wrote down was how to make it more interactive, right? So whether you're speaking, like we talked about, to a room of 3,000, 30, or 200, or even just you're just presenting for work, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you capture and make it interactive? Because we know even students, they're not going to pay attention if it's not really interactive. So how, what are your tips to make it more interactive?
So, two ways to make any presentation more interactive. Number one is your word choice.
Mhm.
So, how are you communicating? One of the words that I believe that should be removed from our language when we are presenting and speaking is the word help, right? Because I feel like we kind of consciously check out, and I consider the word help as discount dialect or a weak word. Instead of helping someone, you can talk about how you can assist them, you can serve them, you can develop them, you can partner with them. So, a
Mhm.
lot of times people are checking out because you're using weak words that doesn't want to make them tune in. So if you begin to use more colorful, vibrant, elevated language, that will
Mhm.
draw people to work with you. So for example, I know we're at work right now and I really need all of your help on this project to make it a success. Can I count on you? That is something that we've heard a million and one times,
Yeah.
right? Versus, listen, we have a really big opportunity in front of us and I really could use your assistance, your support, and your thought leadership on how we can really bring this project to life. Now, I know for a fact that I can't do this without you. So, with your assistant, with your subject matter expertise, we can really make this not just a good project or a great project, we can make this a grand project. You see the
Right.
difference?
Yeah.
So, part of interaction and being a compelling communicator is your actual word choice. Yes, it's about delivery, but what words are you using to communicate the needs, the wants, and the desires to whatever you're communicating about? So that's number one, making sure that you're using more wealthy words and not weak words in your overall communication style. Second, is you want to make sure that people are very visual people. We're very tangible people. So
Right.
as you're talking, what am my claim to fame is, can you bring in some type of tangible? Can you bring in some type of prop? There's a reason why if someone's doing a presentation, they're using a whiteboard, they're using a flip chart, right? So you might
Mhm.
not be able to do that on a stage, right? But is there some type of props or tangible example or illustration that you can pull into your presentation to demonstrate the point that you're trying to make, right? So,
Right.
for example, a lot of us, just go up there and speak. But again, you are not just a speaker. You are part speaker. You are part comedian. You're part educator. You are part performer, right? You're doing a whole bunch of things on that stage. So, one of the things that you can do, the reason why we are entertained by jugglers is because they're showing us something, right? So, what visual aid, what visual support can you include in your presentation to bring your message alive? It doesn't just have to be you and the microphone and your voice as you speak. You can do a great job of bringing in a tangible product or prop that further demonstrates your point.
Yeah, and that's so good. So many great nuggets. I'm learning myself as I'm sitting here. But I've seen speakers like that. One time somebody had something and it was like covered, right? So it brings that like aspect of like mystery, like, oh, what is that? What, and then later on in the speech, they like uncovered it and like talked about something. I don't know if it was like a drawer or something it was, but I've seen different speakers do that. So I think that's really some great points because people are very visual,
Yeah.
especially when learning. We know that the majority of people are visual learners. So, because part of what you're doing when you're presenting is you're sharing information, right, and hoping that they're learning something from you, right? So you mentioned something else that I had written down as one of the points is really bringing your energy and enthusiasm. And I know that sometimes people maybe a little bit introverted or maybe shy, but I still think, and when I do career coaching with the nurses, my clients, I tell them if you're on the phone, even with a recruiter, they can't see you. It's not a Zoom interview or something, but you still need to kind of bring your energy up a bit so you sound interested in the job. And same thing when you're speaking. If you're not really showing a little bit of energy or enthusiasm, I don't think they're going to pick that up. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is definitely for my introverted people, right? Because I get a lot of people like, Quinn, oh my gosh, if I had 2 seconds of your energy, I would be fine as a public speaker. I'll be fine communicating, right? But
Right.
that's just not me. Like, I did not wake up on a 10. I actually woke up on a -5. And it takes all I can just to have a conversation. Like, that is just not me. I'm not a public
Right,
speaker.
right, right, right.
Right? I get it, right? So here's what you need to do. You need to plan your energy. You need to plan what I call passion points in your presentation. So
Mm,
what does that mean? I am a natural extrovert, right? I'm like one of like 2 people on earth that's like, an extrovert. Everybody else is like a certified introvert. They have extroverted tendencies and they go back into their shell, right? I like, this is just who I am, right? So
yeah.
what I do is if you know this about yourself, and let's just say I operate on a 9 or 10, that's just my passion and energy level, and you happen to operate on a 2 or a 3, you need to look through your presentation and ask yourself, where can I turn it up a notch?
Yes.
You can come back down, right? But where can I turn it up a notch, right? So
Mhm.
where can I be intentional about, okay, I'm telling a story right here. This is where I might get bigger with my hand movements. This is where I might get bigger with my eyes. This is where I might be a little bit more exaggerated. I know for a fact that I'm going to elevate my energy for a good 1 minute and then I'm going to come back down again, right? And
Mhm.
that's okay. So if you know that you're a natural, introvert, or you operate, I would say on a regular under a 5, then you need to be intentional about adding in energy and passion points within your message. Same thing with me, right?
Right.
Because I am very much an extrovert, I have to be intentional the other way around. So if I am saying something serious, I will lower my voice and I will lower my energy to pull you in. So you know that Quinn's now saying something serious. Because if I talk to you on 10 for a full 60 minutes, you might feel like I'm yelling at you.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
now I'm mindful
Right.
that I need to slow it down so you can tune in to make a point that I feel like is serious, or I want you to remember, I want you to write down, and then I'll go back up to my regular speaking voice.
Right. That's that variety. Right? That's that
Right.
variety we're just talking about. Yes, I love it. You know, and because you can't, you know, you sometimes you can't stay, you know, sustain that energy that whole time. So I think it is important to, you know, definitely play up and down, kind of like till you said your passion points in that presentation. I love that. So many great points. And then one of my other points that I had written down was you said it yourself, right? So maybe you're introverted or whatever it is. One of the big points is I say is be authentic, because the audience can read right through you, right? So, you know, a lot of people use that word be authentic, but honestly, I think that you can't be somebody that you're not, but yes, you can definitely give it some variety. And I think that was one of the biggest things that, like, after I spoke at an NBA, so many people came up to me because I shared some personal, kind of vulnerable stories through my nursing career about how I got laid off one time and things like that. And they were able to really connect and that vulnerability, right? So I think it's important to still be authentic and be yourself, but you could still, you know, spice it up a bit, I guess you could say. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the space, right? I'm definitely a cheerleader and champion for authenticity and vulnerability, but
Mm-hmm.
it depends on my audience and who I am. So, for
Right.
example, I am a millennial, I am African American, and I'm a woman, right? So, if I am in a male dominated audience, I might not be going for vulnerability. I need you to respect me. I need you to respect my authority. I need you to respect my voice. So I might be coming a little bit differently depending on my audience. So
Right.
I'm in a room full of women who I know that their voice has been muted or muzzled in their career. I'm going to share a personal story about how my voice or how I advocated for my own self. And if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to speak up. So I think it is about kind of what you said in the beginning of this conversation is reading the room, because there are certain rooms that I want to be more vulnerable. I want to be more authentic. I want to be more, I want to connect. I want to relate. And there's
Mhm.
some rooms I got to step in and let you know who the H I am, right? And that's a different type of vibe that I'm going to give. And a lot of times it might be, I have to explain this is not bring your daughter to work day. I know that black don't crack and beige don't age, but I'm nobody's daughter. I'm here to speak. I have a bachelor's, a master's, and plenty of speaking experience and doing what I do. So there's
Mhm.
certain times that you got to stand a little taller.
Right.
There's certain times that you have to poke your chest out a little bit more, depending on the environment. And then there's some environments where it does go for a more calming, nurturing environment. So the more you speak, the more you can read the room and realize, always be, who you need to be. But I think this whole concept of being authentic is something still very new. People have been coming to work and going to business as somebody else for so many years. They don't even know how to be authentic anymore. Like,
Right.
I don't even know what that means, right? Like, so it's like, it sounds good, but people really don't know how to be their authentic self, because to be honest with you, I'm not going to have a conversation with you that I would have the same with some of my friends. Now,
Mhm.
what you're going to get is you might get some orange lipstick, you might see some red lipstick, you might get some purple lipstick. You're going to get sneakers because that's the way I show up, right?
Right. Right.
But at the end of the day, I feel like it depends on the room.
Mhm.
You become a chameleon, but you got to realize where it's time. Maybe I can let my guard down a little bit, or I got to come in with I know what I'm talking about. I know my ish type of hat because I saw the way you looked at me, and you're trying to figure out how did I get here because I'm qualified. That's how I got here.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. I love it. And I think that's that piece as well that a lot of novice speakers, I mean, I'm myself, I've been speaking for a little bit, but not, you've been doing it for like what, 19, 20 years. I think there's a little bit of that imposter syndrome that creeps in sometimes, or you just feel nervous and you're like, do I really have this message? And I'm like, you do, right? If you're and you have to make it about the audience, right? It's not about you. So people get too much into their head, and I think that's what stops a lot of people
Mhm.
sharing their message. So it's very important. So I love what you were saying, all that great stuff, because you really got to show up with your confidence, right? So people can really pay attention and listen to you and be like, hey, she's got something to say. Um, and like you said, you're qualified, right? So my other point was, oh my God, you had said something and I totally forgot. Well, one of the things was like showing up to be memorable, right? Like, so what one thing that I notice about you and, what I try to do when I go to different events or conferences, I try to really be, um, I didn't like color so much before, but now I'm very into color. Like you mentioned purples and things like that. I mean, my nails are purple, right? Like purple and so one time I came with like this bling blazer because I'm like, hey, I'm here, or my shoes. So I'm like, what are your thoughts on like that style? Because I think it's important how you're looking up on that stage too, right?
Well, I'm going to give you the perspective from a woman because that's the only perspective I really know.
Right.
But, all that matters and what people have to understand as well is 93% of communication is nonverbal, right? So,
Mhm.
what do I mean by that? Hey, Mallory, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. She says, ladies, these are amazing, powerful tips. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. So, what
Yeah.
I was saying is, you have to understand that 93% of communication is nonverbal. So, before you open your mouth, before you say a word, you're already communicating, right?
Mhm.
So women, especially with using their voices, and this is why I have a deep love, appreciation, admiration, and calling, to be honest with you, an assignment to really turn up the volume on the voices of women in their career and as business women, is
Mhm.
because we've been really taught to blend in. We've
Yes.
been taught to play small,
Right.
especially culturally, right?
Mhm.
Like people have been told their entire life, women are supposed to be seen but not heard.
Right.
Don't
My dad used to be like, "You're too loud." I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. Don't speak unless spoken to. You know what I mean? So there is a lot of cultural communication norms that we have accepted as true. Like I know for a fact, you know what I mean? If I would walk into a house and I would not speak to everybody, oh, you're in trouble for that. You're not going to speak. Like there's a lot of different things, right?
right.
Or if your tone is not toning, right? My mother would say, who are you talking to? I even do it to my kids. Like if I feel like it's just a little bit more elevated for my liking, it's just like who and nobody, you were talking to me. Okay. All right. So
Right.
I think that what we also have to understand is we are encouraging and welcoming people to show up and stand tall and be their authentic selves and be vibrant. But you're also fighting against years of mental, you know, put down of being muted or muzzled, right? So we live in a world that's very black, white, beige, and gray. That's when people show up. That's when people have color on. So when I come in, you know what I mean, with colors, like that's a bold statement. So
Mhm.
I say for people, it doesn't have to be a full-fledged, because I'll come in with a yellow suit. I'll come in with a red suit. That's just me.
Love
But I
it.
would say start with maybe adding some accessory or color. So
Mm.
maybe it's a scarf, maybe it's a blazer. If you have 25 blazers that are all black, maybe you need to get a yellow one. Maybe you need to try an orange one, right? Like, please do not buy another pair of black pants. Your whole closet is black pants, right? So I know I'm talking to somebody right now. Hopefully, I'm not talking to you, Miss Farah, but I'm just saying. But the person is just like, it's almost gets to the point where you're at work, you're like, I already know what she's gonna wear. She wears the same thing every day, right? So
No,
I
no, no. I wanted to wear something different, but I was late. I was in traffic and
no
whatever.
no no
But
no no no, you're fine.
I'm all about that. But before I was like that, I was very like beige and blacks and stuff. So that's why when I talk to my clients, my nursing clients, I was like, no, you're not wearing a black suit, because everybody wears a black suit to an interview. I'm like, be the person that pops out and is different, because you're gonna be memorable. So same thing. So you're gonna be turning heads as soon as you walk into that conference room, or they're like, oh, who is that, right?
Right.
And I know Precious, right?
I do.
I love Precious. So I follow her, and I've met her actually in person at a business conference in Newark. So we keep in touch, and I love her because same like you, she's like full of
Firecracker.
energy,
Firecrackers.
fire, turns the room like, just like you said, when you come into a room, you're like dynamic and just turn it around. You just shift the energy. So that's why I'm so attracted to people like you and Precious, because that's what I try to be, right? Because I want to empower, and people are just so, I'm like, come on, like have fun, right? You could be at events and things, and it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be serious all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. I love it. I love all the stuff that you said. So really, just to wrap it up, because we're just going to be ending it soon. What what is your main message for people out there that maybe want to get into speaking or maybe have an upcoming presentation, speaking engagement? What would you say to them? What advice do you have for them?
So I think it's about organization and structure, and understanding that being a speaker is really about, it's not just one dimensional, right? It really, people say it's an art because it is an art, right? When you look at different artists, every artist has a different style, they have a different form. But I would say my biggest thing is most people are nervous because they don't have any organization or structure. So one of the things that I teach my clients to do is really have a framework or have a methodology that you are speaking from. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, you probably have experienced all the time, but you might not have your own. So for example, let's talk about you. You might talk to nurses about what they can do to advance in their career, right? And you might have a 5-point framework, right? Under the word nurse. So the N would stand for something, the U would stand for something, the R would stand for something, the S would stand for something, and the E would stand for something. So if you ever get nervous, what am I going to say? Okay, I know I was at my N. I can either go back to my N or I'm going to actually go to my U. So sometimes it's about structuring and organizing your speech so you're not winging it. That's why speakers say, I'm going to give you 3 points, or I'm going to share with you my bold framework, or I'm going to show you how to speak with power, right? And speak might be an acronym for the points they want to make. So if you have something coming up, make sure you have a framework or a methodology that you are using as a guide to deliver your message. Now, once you have all those points, you need to ask yourself, how are you going to support it? Is it a fact? Is it a statistic? Is it an example? But once you have a framework, I feel like your job gets that much easier because you're not just giving information, you're giving them a systematic way to follow your thought process.
Such a good point, and especially if I think for speakers too, because then it's memorable, and we do use a lot of acronyms in nursing. Actually, it's memorable, and I think it keeps you structured, like you said, and it's just easy to follow. So that is great. So again, tell the people where they can find you if they want to work with you.
Absolutely. Connect with me right here on LinkedIn if you're watching this. Or also, too, if you just got a really good nugget, like, oh, Quinn, I really like your tip on this. I like to know that as well. Because
Mhm.
I'm always doing research to figure out what are the things that people need to do to become powerful presenters and compelling communicators in their career or their business. So as I'm doing more interviews, I can speak. So whatever tip, tool, strategy, or technique that I can say could be advantageous to you in your career or in your business.
Awesome. And you said you do take clients. Are you currently taking clients now?
I do. However, it depends on what's going on. So when you reach out to me, I'm very much still on the road as a speaker. So there's certain times where I do take clients, and there's certain times I do not, only because I'm speaking on stages a lot. So when you connect with me, whether you're watching this live or you may have watched the replay, just
Right.
reach out to me and I can let you know my capacity and my availability.
Awesome. So thank you so much. And for those out there, if you happen to be watching the replay, definitely connect with Quinn, connect with me. Let us know if you have any questions, put them there in the comments. And for those of you who've come and joined us, thank you so much for joining. And again, Quinn, you are amazing. Thank you so much. And you never know, maybe I'll be your client if you have time later this year.
Yeah. Look, shoot me a message. We've already been talking, but yeah, let me know how I can support you. And I mean, again, I know that we're about to wrap this up, but I just believe that speaking and passion are the only two skills you cannot outsource.
Yes.
You can hire for a lot of things, but when it's time to interview, you cannot send a representative. You got to go in there yourself, right? So I always tell people
Exactly.
that speaking is such a valuable skill set. And Warren Buffett said, your ability to communicate will increase your credibility by 50%.
Absolutely, because if you can't articulate, what you're doing, or even, pitch yourself for a job or whatever it is, even if it's not just public speaking, you're constantly networking with people. So,
Right.
communication, like you said, is definitely key. So again, I appreciate this so much, and hopefully we can have you back on maybe later this year on a
Yeah.
different topic or something like this. And where are you located? You're
Maryland, Baltimore,
in
Maryland.
Baltimore,
What about
Maryland.
you? Where are you located?
I'm in Jersey right now, New
Jersey.
Jersey.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
East Coast.
So, anyways, thank you again. And for all of you watching, thank you for coming to the Nursing Dose. And oh, here's somebody else saying thank you. Thank you, Glory. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye. You can stay on for